Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through this today, because we aren't just retelling an old story. Today, we are actively reopening one of Los Angeles' darkest and most infamous mysteries. We're going to examine the evidence, piece by piece, to see if we are finally closing in on the truth behind one of Hollywood's greatest secrets.
80. That is how many years the Black Dahlia case has stumped, well, pretty much everyone. It's a labyrinth that has defeated generations of detectives. But today, we are taking a brand new lens to this cold case. We're going to examine 5 crucial clues, combining the original, foundational evidence with some truly wild modern theories that will completely change how you view this investigation.
Okay, let's dive right into our case file for today. We'll be looking at 1. Reopening the Black Dahlia. 2. A calculated crime scene. 3. The killer's taunt. 4. The suspect's circle. 5. Modern forensic tools. And we'll wrap up with 6. The enduring question. Let's get started.
All right, starting with Section 1, Reopening the Black Dahlia, a mystery in plain sight.
Moving to Section 2. A calculated crime scene. The chilling discovery. Picture this. It's the morning of January 15, 1947. A mother, walking with her child, makes a horrific discovery in a Los Angeles vacant lot. The body of 22-year-old Elizabeth Short.
And the reality of what they found? It was beyond horrific. Her body had been surgically cut in half. The killer mutilated Elizabeth Short in a way that, well, it's a grim detail for sure, but it is absolutely essential for understanding who we're dealing with. This wasn't some frantic, messy, heat-of-the-moment thing. It was deliberate. It was surgical.
On top of that, her body was completely drained of all blood. So what does that mean? Well, that total lack of blood at the vacant lot definitively proves she was killed somewhere else. The killer actually transported her and deliberately dumped her body out in the open as this chilling spectacle. Literally, before the police even figured out her name, the killer was already sending a massive, very loud message.
And finally, the body was washed completely clean. She was deliberately posed, hands over her head, legs spread apart. The killer had even carved a grotesque smile onto her face. The pristine posed state of the body wasn't an accident. It was a horrifying statement meant entirely for pure shock value.
So what does all of this actually tell us about the killer? When you synthesize all these clues, cut in half, drained of blood, washed clean, and carefully posed, it points to someone who absolutely was not panicking. We're looking at a highly confident, incredibly calculated killer who, quite frankly, very likely possessed professional medical training.
Which brilliantly illustrates our next point in Section 3, the killer's taunt, chaos and gasoline. You see, from day one, the media frenzy surrounding this case was just totally out of control. Newspapers were going to war for sales, reporters literally swarmed the crime scene, completely trampling all over potential physical evidence before the cops could even lock it down. And then they started jamming up police phone lines just to get scoops. Get this, in one of the most ruthless, just unbelievable moves in journalism history, reporters actually called Elizabeth Short's mother and lied to her. They told her that her daughter had won a beauty contest, just so they could score an exclusive interview. They only dropped the horrifying truth on her after they got their quotes. It's wild. And even when the FBI stepped in to identify her using old fingerprints, forensics back then were, virtually non-existent. Key files were lost, and the insane media hype led to hundreds of people falsely confessing, which basically made the suspect list practically useless.
Let's move to the timeline and see how this builds, because the chaos of that first week, that was just the beginning. Exactly 1 week after the body was found, the killer wasn't hiding. Nope, they actually decided to engage directly with the authorities.
A package was mailed to the Los Angeles Examiner newspaper, and the address on the front was made from letters cut and pasted out of magazines, literally like a trope straight out of a horror movie. Inside, they found a collection of Elizabeth Short's personal belongings. We're talking photos, business cards, and her address book. But here is the kicker. Just like the body at the crime scene, everything in this package had been carefully wiped down with gasoline to destroy any fingerprints. Now, while partial prints were reportedly found, they were damaged in transit to the FBI lab and ended up being totally useless. But this package, it is massive. It takes the killer from being this faceless ghost into a real-life character boldly taunting the exact police who were hunting him.
Now we're on to Section 4, the suspect circle, doctors, nightclub owners, and liars.
Before we really dive into these names, I want you to challenge yourself for a second based on what we've covered so far.
Do you think the killer was a total stranger who just picked her at random, or was it someone she actually knew? Let's examine a pretty tight circle of suspects. First up, we have the men she knew. Robert Red Manley was one of the last people to see her alive, but he ended up being cleared by a polygraph test. Then there's Mark Hansen, a nightclub owner. His name was actually found inside that very address book the killer mailed to the press. But hey, remember our profile from the crime scene? That surgical precision definitely points toward a doctor. And that brings us to Dr. Walter Bailey. He was a surgeon who lived literally 1 block away from the vacant lot where her body was dumped. I mean, that is a chilling coincidence, right? And it aligns perfectly with the physical evidence we just talked about.
But arguably the most famous suspect of all time is another doctor, Dr. George Hodel. In a completely shocking twist, his own son, who happens to be a former LAPD detective, Steve Hodel, publicly claims his dad was the serial killer responsible. And while the evidence isn't 100% direct, it is absolutely mind-blowing. Back in 1950, police bugged Dr. Hodel's house and actually recorded him saying these exact spine-tingling words. "Supposing I did kill the Black Dahlia. They couldn't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary because she's dead." Seriously? Wow. Despite this bugged confession sitting right there in the police transcripts, the LAPD never actually charged him. And to this day, a lot of experts remain totally divided on it.
All right, moving into Section 5, Modern Forensic Tools, AI, and the Zodiac Connection. The contrast between these two eras is just staggering. Back in 1947 forensics, what did you have? You had trampled scenes, lost files, and useless partial prints getting damaged in transit. Compare that to today, where investigators are bringing in brand new, high-tech breakthroughs. For instance, a recent television investigation claims they've actually pinpointed the real primary crime scene where the murder took place. They are currently begging the LAPD to release the full, uncensored autopsy reports. Modern forensic scientists firmly believe that with today's technology, they could find microscopic clues that were completely invisible to those detectives back in 1947.
Now, what's really interesting about this next slide is how modern tech is even bridging two of California's most infamous mysteries. This is the Zodiac connection. Now, full disclosure, it's a completely out-of-control, super fringe theory, but it is gaining immense traction online. An investigator recently claimed to have used artificial intelligence to decode one of the Zodiac killer's notorious ciphers. And according to this theory, the AI spit out the name Marvin Margolis. Margolis was a former pre-med student, which, by the way, ties right back into our medical training profile, who apparently dated Elizabeth Short, and get this, was actually on the original 1947 suspect list. So while it's heavily speculative, sources are saying the LAPD is actively looking into it. How crazy is that?
Which brings us to our final section. Number 6, the enduring question, technology versus time.
We've navigated a pretty incredible labyrinth of clues today, haven't we? We've got a highly symbolic, surgically precise crime scene, a completely failed 1947 investigation just marred by media chaos, a bold, gasoline-soaked package taunting the press, and a tight circle of very suspicious men, particularly doctors, backed up by bugged confessions and AI-decoded ciphers that are breathing totally new life into the investigation. The Black Dahlia mystery remains famous not from a lack of evidence, but because the evidence points in a million different, fascinating directions. Which leaves us with this final thought to linger on. Can modern technology truly solve an 80-year-old ghost story? Or are we just finding new, high-tech ways to ask the exact same questions they asked in 1947? Are we finally about to name the killer, or will the Black Dahlia forever remain Hollywood's darkest, unsolved secret?